भजमन राधे 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 गोविंदा ओ राधे 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 गोविंदा राधे ओ राधे 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 गोविंदा राधे 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 गोविंदा ओ राधे 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 गोविंदा भजमन राधे 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 गोविंदा ओ राधे 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 गोविंदा ओ राधे 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 गोविंदा ओ राधे 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 गोविंदा राधे राधे ओ राधे 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 गोविंदा 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 ओ भजमन राधा गोविंद राधे 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 भजमन राधा गोविंद राधे राधा राधा गोविंद राधे राधा गोविंद राधे
राधा गोविंद राधे राधा गोविंद राधे राधा गोविंद राधे भजमन राधा गोविंद राधे राधा गोविंद राधे
भजमन राधा गोविंद राधे राधा गोविंद राधे
भजमन राधा गोविंद राधे राधा गोविंद राधे ओ राधे 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 गोविंद जय राधे राधे गोविंदा राधे 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 गोविंद जय राधे 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 गोविंद जय राधे राधे गोविंदा गोविंदा राधे 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 गोविंद जय राधे राधे गोविंदा राधे 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 गोविंद जय राधे 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 भजमन राधे 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 गोविंद राधे राधे भजन राधे 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 गोविंद 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 राधे 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 गोविंद
Shri Shri Sachinandana Chand ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Shri Gurudev ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna
Vivo.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Gauranga
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna clap everyone please Hare Bol Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare
Some,
Hare Krishna. Are you all settled now for an evening of amazing pastimes, Leelas with Srila Prabhupada, by one of his, as I said earlier, one of his first initiated disciples. And ISKCON UK exists because of Shyamasundara and his Dharmapatni and 3 or 4 other couples, yes? 3 or 4 other couples. This is pioneering devotees. For your comfort, we do have these red cushions. If some of you need cushions to sit on, they are right behind here. Prabhu, take them, please. Just request and they'll be passed to you, okay? I will now like to hand over to Haridas Prabhu. Haridas Prabhu is the UK Deputy JBC for ISKCON, and he meets devotees like Shyamasundara and others when he goes to Mayapur meetings, the international meetings, and he will give a proper introduction to Shyamasundara Prabhu.
Before we do that, Vidhu Prabhu, if you can garland over. So Vidhu Prabhu is the temple president. He's welcoming the president of all presidents, Shyamasundara Prabhu. Yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming. Honestly, we have Sunday programs, so we don't get so many people on any other day. And Shyam, the driver, he goes a bit like the manor, he goes, you know, because they meet on Sundays. So I'd like to thank you all for coming today. And another thing is that how many people have actually met Srila Prabhupada? You have. Okay, that's one person. And of course you have. You don't have to put your hand up. That's why you're here. Okay. So what happens is you're lucky. We always think, my God, wish we had taken darshan of Srila Prabhupada. Now, let's play this scene. Srila Prabhupada is there. You've taken darshan for 2 seconds, and you got your impression, whatever it is. And later on you can say, I've taken darshan of Prabhupada. Everybody goes, we're not worthy. You like that, you know? Now, what if somebody served Srila Prabhupada for 13 years or so, 10 to 13 years? Do you want to hear their impression of what Srila Prabhupada? And, you know, if Prabhupada was here, would he talk about himself? No. So you wouldn't know what Prabhupada, you know, is thinking or whatever. Here is someone who spent time with Srila Prabhupada, slept outside the doors, you know, never saw Srila Prabhupada sleep, you know, doing this, doing that. You know, we're going to hear from yourself directly. So you might think, oh my God, we never met Srila Prabhupada. Well, you're going to meet someone who served Srila Prabhupada for so long, and this is his last trip to UK.
I'm 81 years old. I don't know. I'll try to come back. I don't even buy green bananas anymore.
So you can see this is very, very rare. And Vidya Prabhu, you'll agree, for us, we got the planning permission to extend this wall right up to there, so the temple room will be double the size. And only last week we got the permission. So can you bless us that we get that?
May you extend all the way to Birmingham.
Fantastic. Now, this blessing is genuine, I'm telling you, you know. So Birmingham better watch out. Anyway, so I just wanted to say, now, you know, we'll hear Shyamasundara Prabhuji. It's going to be beautiful, you know, and it's on the YouTube as well. But, you know, these personalities, they've done wonderful things. You know, Shukdev was telling Parikshit Maharaj about Krishna Leela. And he wanted to hear it. This is Shukdev here. Mm-hmm. We are Parikshits. Yeah. We never met them. And then it will be told about Srila Prabhupada. It's all about Srila Prabhupada today. Many who join, you know, the ISKCON, they just meet Prabhuji, this Prabhuji, that Prabhuji. You don't have much impression of Srila Prabhupada. But you want to hear how it started, you know, when there was no books available, and then the books came, and they didn't address Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was Swamiji, or Swamiji, you know? So things like that are very, very cute. So please now capture it. But I'll tell you one thing, I want to encourage you. Those books out there, it's hard work. It took you 10 years?
My whole life.
Whole life. Round of applause for that. That's not hard work. Now, Shyamasundara Prabhuji lives in a forest area, I believe, on your own. And we want his life to be comfortable. We want to support that. And that you've done incredible. And when you meet Srila Prabhupada in Golok, please put a good word in for Coventry. Yeah. So can we, you know, if you brought your credit cards or whatever, today take a set or single book or whatever you want to do. Single book is 20 pounds, set is 50 pound discount. And then you can get it autographed. And another thing, Pranava Prabhu, where's that little box? There. This little box, in there, there's a flower here, which was on Srila Prabhupada's body when he left the body. Guru Hari Prabhu brought this. So he left it to us. He liked our temple. So today, I'm going to leave it there. And whoever comes and gets autographed also gets the blessing of Srila Prabhupada by the very hand which served Srila Prabhupada. How's that for a treat? I think it's a wonderful treat. Yeah, it's great. We preserve this, and today we're going to use this. You know, so I would encourage you, please, please, please take those books. It's not about selling the books. It's getting to know who's the subject matter of. And when you fall in love with Srila Prabhupada, you've reached Krishna. He's the link. Because some people don't get to know Srila Prabhupada and they're trying on their own sort of to reach Krishna. And I've seen disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they have special energy more than us. We just, even if they say a few words, there's some energy because they've been touched and blessed by Srila Prabhupada. So I don't want to take any more time. Please remember today that find it in your heart to get the books, buy them. And there's some books for Birmingham. I don't want Birmingham to have any books. Just now you've been blessed. We're going all the way. We're going to just take their books. So buy them all, and let's see what happens next. All right. Thank you. We're going to put up a stand. Yes. Yeah. I think the more kirtans we do, we're going to miss out on the leaders. So is that okay with the Prabhu? Yeah. So another round of applause, please, for Shyamasundara Prabhu. Hello, Haribo!
Okay. What a showman, huh? First of all, I offer my deep felt thanks to you, Haridas, and greetings and deep gratitude to all of you wonderful angels and your wonderful congregation here in Coventry. Special thanks to Sita Thakurani and her partner Don, who have traveled. I have never met them, but Sita Thakurani did some editing work on one of these volumes, so they've traveled all the way down from Sheffield, isn't it? Yeah, from Sheffield to be here tonight. I guess most of all, my deepest gratitude is to Krishna for allowing me this long lifetime, 81 years now, to broadcast the glories, the inconceivable glories of my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. I must, okay, switch? Yeah, good. I must ask your slight forgiveness here, as Haridas mentioned. I've been living the last 4 years in a forest in seclusion, more or less, and this is my first trip out for public speaking. So I'm a little rusty on that, and I hope you don't mind. I made a few notes.
Hare Krishna, sorry, 1 minute, please. If the children are going to be children, please request you move a little back.
Isn't it a marvelous thing to be a Hare Krishna Vaishnava? Huh? Gosh. Take this off, please. This material world is more than ever such a madhouse of uncertainty. Wars raging, political upheavals, now global epidemics, the lightning fast pace of technology, which leaves most of us totally confused. I mean, I just drove here in his e-car, Tesla, couldn't believe it. I wouldn't be able to open the door on that thing. But how lucky we are, as Vaishnavas. Wherever we go in this world gone mad, we're a family. We're united in our love for God and protected by Krishna at every moment, certain and safe from this craziness around us. And coming back to the UK after all these years, I'm overwhelmed by what I see here today. This tiny acorn seed that 6 of us young and inexperienced devotees planted here in 1968 has grown now to this mighty oak tree.
Thank you.
No, more than that, this forest of oak trees spreading from one end of the British Isles to the other on both sides. Seeing thousands of energetic and pure Vaishnavas wherever I go, temples like yours, in the very center of important cities, prime ministers coming to the temple for darshan, the Hare Krishna mantra ringing in every street and corner of this land, these Avanti schools all over UK instructing the children in this perfect way of life. How wonderful Such a miracle could only be the will of the Supreme Person, Krishna, manifested through his very special warrior, Srila Prabhupada. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Did you ever meet a perfect person? A living person, but without any error, totally pure, whose physical beauty and grace is constant, yet ever-changing and ever-attractive. Someone who knows everything, the living embodiment of all knowledge. Most of you know the story, how it happened those 5 decades ago, how the Swami captured us, a few of us at first, and how in such short time the Hare Krishna culture exploded around the world. And did we have fun? Did we have fun? The Swami's mood is always hilarious, as serious and as grave as the absolute truth can be. Krishna consciousness is also the reservoir of delight and pleasure. And the Swami tickles our funny bones constantly. And he's the living example of how much fun it is, the life on board his magic sailing ship, chasing rhinos with the Swami. This was the Swami's famous marching order for our little army. We should always be enthusiastic to try for capturing the rhinoceros. That way, if we fail, everyone will say, never mind, nobody can catch a rhinoceros anyway. And if we succeed, then everyone will say, just see what a wonderful thing they have done. As some of you may know, over the past 10 years now, I've been writing and producing a 3-volume memoir of the 7 years I passed at Prabhupada's feet. At first as his trusted lieutenant, and then for years as his personal secretary. I call it Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. This theme, Chasing Rhinos, I think is central to understanding action, which is the heart and soul of devotional life. As you know, the Bhagavad Gita is Lord Krishna's instructions to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And these instructions are the summary and compendium of all knowledge. At the onset of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks Krishna, what do I do? How do I act? And Krishna replies, just act for me. Strive for me with your fullest energy. Take the biggest risks for me. And win or lose, it doesn't matter. I will protect you. In other words, chase the rhino. Bhaktivedanta Swami said to us 2 things. You become yourself Krishna conscious, and you spread Krishna consciousness. That's all. That's it. Moreover, you become Krishna conscious by spreading Krishna consciousness. This is the secret. You get 2 for the price of 1. Chase the rhino for Krishna, become Krishna conscious. It's simple. It's the simplest possible plan for a successful life. As Haridas mentioned, in those early days, we had no models. There was no history. There were no maps for us to follow. No books. We didn't even have Bhagavad Gita for 2 years. We had only the Swami, his words, his personal example. How he himself had chased the rhino to America as an old man with no money and no friends there and no plan really, totally under Krishna's protection. So that kind of courage rubbed off on us. We just saw him as the living example of how we should act, boldly and with, Srila Prabhupada never minced words. Each day he said to us, "What I am telling you will save humankind. You must help me change the world." That's it. I'll just deviate from my notes for a second to draw a picture of Srila Prabhupada, the Swami in those days. I mean, first of all, it was his physical beauty. He was just so beautiful, an old man. I mean, we were young hippies, like 20-some years old. We were full of beauty ourselves, but we saw somebody more beautiful than anyone we'd ever seen before. You know, normally old people are not beautiful anymore, but Srila Prabhupada was, we couldn't take our eyes off him before he even said a word. But then when he started speaking, every word he said was just rang so true. And we didn't notice it at first, but gradually we saw that Srila Prabhupada never made a mistake of any kind. You know, he never we'll get into that later about mistakes, but he never dropped anything. He never stumbled. He never made a mistake in his talking. He never did anything which we would call an error. This is looking back now. At the time, we just were fascinated by Srila Prabhupada. So change the world. Become yourself Krishna conscious and change the world. That's Prabhupada's only one request for us. And some of you might have seen the previous volumes, volume 1 and 2. Anybody has seen those early books? Okay, not many, a few. Well, before I introduce you to volume 3, I understand this is Snana Yatra Day. Is that right? Or is that in Birmingham?
That was in Birmingham.
That's in Birmingham. Okay, so I won't read that part of that. But so please allow me to introduce you to volume 3. It's hot off the press. The ink is practically still wet on this book. And this volume 3 is the summum bonum, or the final chapter. And I think it's the most exciting description yet of Prabhupada's wisdom and adventures among us. I think most particularly this will interest you guys because much of this book takes place in Great Britain. Prabhupada's adventures around London, Berry Place. And then it recounts the acquisition and early days of Bhaktivedanta Manor. And most importantly, this book describes in almost day by day Srila Prabhupada's 3-month-long stay with us at the manor in the summer of 1973. So this is volume 3. Srila Prabhupada, for nearly 2 years, racing around the world, first in Mexico, then all over North America, then Europe, London, Amsterdam, Scotland, France, Switzerland, then back to India, a month in Vrindavan, delivering his famous Nectar of Devotion lectures. And then we raced to Bombay for the months-long legal battle over Hare Krishna land with that demon, Mr. Nair. In that recounting, that story in here, you'll see the unbelievable expertise of Srila Prabhupada as a lawyer, a solicitor, advocate, whatever you call them here. Srila Prabhupada defeated the best judicial minds in Bombay over a 2-month period. I was his go-between. I would run into Bombay every day, take the depositions and the rebuttals from the other side and race them back to Prabhupada. And in minutes, he'd lay out the entire strategy for tomorrow. And then I'd race back to Bombay and he would have defeated their lawyers. And this went on for 2 months. And in the end, Hare Krishna land emerged. But then we come back to England and settled down for the most dynamic and powerful episode in all of Prabhupada's amazing adventures, the summer of 1973 at Bhaktivedanta Manor, the lavish country estate gifted to him by George Harrison in Hertfordshire. For 3 months, Srila Prabhupada, he comes to Bhaktivedanta Manor. We're 30 miles from London, so there are no outside engagements. And our first, whenever Prabhupada came to visit, our first order of business was to attract him so much to staying there that he would stay with us longer and longer. And we knew after all these years that the one thing Prabhupada liked to do more than anything else was converse with intelligent people, one-on-one, in his room. This was his favorite pastime. So we sent, the devotees went out all over Britain to find the most interesting people they could find, famous sometimes, not always, but the head of their field, whatever it was, bring them back to the manor, and Prabhupada conversed with them almost every afternoon. I recorded all these lectures. There were over 50 of them. And the best of these discussions are highlighted in this book. So I thought tonight I'll just read a few passages from Volume 3 to share with you just a taste of Srila Prabhupada's extraordinary wisdom and humor to the leading citizens of Britain. So let's go to July 1972. This is the first Rath Yatra in London that Prabhupada has attended. It's actually the 4th annual London Rath Yatra. And this was, I think of it as Srila Prabhupada's introduction to Britain as a royal person, as a king. From the very beginning, when we first came to this country, we wanted to present Prabhupada here as a royal person, as the King of England. And we struggled for almost a year to do this. We turned down any ideas of having a temple out in the suburbs or something like that. We wanted to be right in the heart of at that time, the most important city in the world, and have everything first class for Prabhupada, like a king should have. After 1 year of preparing for this, Prabhupada came in September 1969. And he was picked up at the airport by a white Rolls Royce, owned by the most famous person in the world, John Lennon. He was taken to John Lennon's estate in Buckinghamshire, where that was his residence. So right from the beginning, and his devotees in London were at that time, we were some of the most popular people in the country. We had just recorded a record on the Apple label, and we were in the top 10 hits. We were going to concerts all over the country, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra to 2,000 or 3,000 paid customers, lining up after to sign autographs. So when Prabhupada came, he was the King of England. And this is his first public address at that Rath Yatra in July 1972. If you were a disinterested Englishman descending the steps from, this is in the Rath Yatra, as you recall, goes from Hyde Park Corner to Trafalgar Square. Okay. If you were a disinterested Englishman descending the steps from the National Gallery after that Sunday afternoon's viewing of Van Gogh's Sunflowers and the Turner collection, you looked out into a strange sea of commotion at Trafalgar Square. If you were in an Indian's body, you'd be sweating from the 3-hour march and feeling a new hope rising in this cold land. And if you're a Krishna devotee, you're now hoarse and thirsty, and you raise your voice to an out-of-body pitch as Prabhupada descends from the Rath car and takes his place on stage. Prabhupada says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for coming here and participating in this great movement. The purpose of this movement is to cleanse the heart. We have created so many problems in our life simply on the platform of misunderstanding. What is that misunderstanding? The misunderstanding is that we are accepting this material body as the self. But there is another nature, which is called spiritual nature. So that spiritual nature, or spiritual sky, is described in the Vedic literature that there is no need of sunshine, no need of moonshine, there is no need of electricity. So our only business is to transfer ourselves from this sky to that sky, that illuminating sky. That is the Vedic injunction. Don't remain in this world of darkness. Come to the world of light." This was Prabhupada's address to the public. So a week passes by at Berry Place, and then on July 13th, 1972, Srila Prabhupada, myself, and a devotee named Dhananjaya, we have driven out to George Harrison's estate, new estate, called Friar Park, near Henley-on-Thames in Oxfordshire. Imagine the scene. George has just taken us on a 2-hour tour of his 100-room castle and the acres of surrounding beautiful gardens. We're sitting in the house now, in a room with sliding glass doors, open to the twilight and an evening breeze, looking out over the gardens. Prabhupada sits in an armchair in the half-light, and there is, yes, a bluish aura around him, around us. Time is suspended in the gloaming as Prabhupada gives us transcendental vision and takes us with him into the spiritual world. Prabhupada says, "In the spiritual sky, there is nothing but freshness. Even the flowers picked from the trees and plants remain fresh, for everything in the spiritual sky retains its originality and does not fade. The fragrance of the flowers picked from the trees and made into garlands does not fade, for both the trees and flowers are spiritual. The significance of spirituality is that everything is eternal and inexhaustible. Everything taken from everything remains everything. The bees hum around the fresh flowers, and their sweet sound is enjoyed by the Lord. But even within the material world, one can spiritualize one's existence by seeing the Supreme Lord within everything and worshiping him by constant meditation. We sit silently for many minutes as the sun winks out. A quick glance at my watch says 9:15, and full dark descends on the room. Prabhupada holds us in a magic spell, and I sense this is a historic moment. Prabhupada has zapped us, convincing George beyond all doubt now. When he finally speaks, George clears his throat and then says in a husky voice, "I want to buy you an ashram like this place. I will get my estate agents to start looking tomorrow." So that was the beginning of Bhaktivedanta Manor. Almost 1 year it took. So 1 year later, in the spring of 1973, imagine we have this new 17-acre estate with about 30 or 40 rooms, very place to manage, Sankirtan parties twice daily up and down Oxford Street, new temples in Ireland and other places around UK, and we were only 50 of us, 50 devotees to do all this work. So we were spread pretty thin. And even though we weren't prepared for him yet to receive him, Srila Prabhupada called us on the telephone from Los Angeles, and he said, I'm going to India tomorrow, and on my way I will stop to see the new house. We weren't ready for him, so with very little warning. And they had told me that he was ill, that he had a bad cold, and that he was on his way to India to recuperate. So without warning, he flew into Heathrow Airport. And I thought, well, and it was pouring rain that whole week. I thought, well, you know, we can't subject Srila Prabhupada to that 1 hour or 2 hour ride from Heathrow to the manor. Let's get him a helicopter. On the morning of May 23rd, face pressed against the lurching, rain-spattered plastic bubble, I struggled to see the M1 motorway somewhere below. A little more to your right, I holler at the pilot. I think we're almost there. I had blown my last 400 pounds on this 10-minute, 15-mile helicopter ride from Heathrow to the manor. Prabhupada has a bad cold, they had said. My thought was, if we go by chopper, he'll be spared the hour-long drive from the airport in this nasty weather. Now I'm very anxious. Sorry that I'm putting him through this gut-wrenching experience. I look over to see Shrutakirti, ghost white face, jaws clenched, as the 3-passenger battered Bell 206 skitters and claws its way through the storm. Leaning forward, I glance at Prabhupada, buckled to the front seat, expecting the worst. His eyes dart from instruments to trees and hedges, the green blur close below, whispering Krishna at a rapid pace. But his face is lit by uncommon joy, calm, taking it all in. That special look that means, yes, another adventure. Being in that helicopter is like being inside a bouncing plexiglass basketball. It's all I can do not to heave up my breakfast. Yes, there are the power lines. The manor suddenly emerges through a wall of water. That's it. Land on that big lawn in front. A sea of devotees swarms onto the lawn, dancing. I can't land there. They must move, yells the pilot. I wave my arms, signaling the crowd below to move while the chopper hovers, flattening the grass with circular downwash, blasting garlands from devotees' hands. They get the message, move well back, and we land. The helicopter thunders off, and in the welcome silence, Prabhupada stands beaming beneath a held umbrella, greeting his British children lying face down on the drenched lawn. Up to his chin in rhododendron garlands, he raises his eyes to the elegant manor facade and says, "Oh, so nice, this house Krishna has given." So Prabhupada then, he goes on to India and then returns 5 weeks later. Now it's early July 1973, and Srila Prabhupada attends the 5th London Rath Yatra. Now remember, he was supposed to be very ill. Everyone was worried if he could even attend the Rath Yatra, so I rented a little red car, like Shyam's car, but smaller, and followed the Rath car down. I parked it right behind the Rath car, so in case Prabhupada needed to get off the Rath car and get in the car and go rest someplace, or maybe he would get ill, I wasn't sure. But to everyone's surprise, historical surprise, maybe you even read this somewhere, Srila Prabhupada got out of the car and danced all the way from Hyde Park Corner to Trafalgar Square. Jumping up and down. It was a display of Krishna's transcendental energy like none I'd ever seen him do. So there's no outside programs, like I mentioned. So we brought these interesting guests, scientists, philosophers, theologians, artists, historians, famous rock stars, movie people, race car drivers, teachers, Buddhist monks, Christian priests, even Harry, the village policeman, came. So I'll just read a few snippets of some of these conversations. They're treated at length, but we don't have time for it. I'll just read a few snippets just to give you an idea of Prabhupada's amazing logic and finesse in every conversation. In fact, after seeing Prabhupada in action in thousands of conversations, I can say that every person who came into conversation with him left feeling satisfied somehow. Even if they were antagonistic, they left feeling somehow satisfied. I'm just taking some snippets. With Mr. Waddell, headmaster at a boys' school near the manor. Mr. Waddell: but are there not things about which in the mortal life one can have no clear idea? Prabhupada: but if you get clear idea, why you do not take it? We are always in wrong idea because we are born ignorant. Therefore we send our boys, children, to school to correct the wrong ideas. Mr. Waddell: but some of the teachers may not be correct. Prabhupada: no, then he is not teacher. If a teacher is wrong, he is cheater. That is our proposition. Now with 3 college students who ask basic questions about yoga. Student: I don't follow at all. Prabhupada: then you'll never be able to follow. Just like, why do you accept the Queen as the Supreme? Students: we don't. Prabhupada: oh, then you are not very sane. With 3 educationists who had traveled a long distance to hear from the Swami. Prabhupada: so our process is to force the student to hear. Then he'll be awakened by hearing. Therefore, Vedic literature is called Shruti. Shruti means it has to be received by hearing. You may be uneducated. It doesn't matter. If you simply hear from the right source, you get right knowledge. There is no need of education, simply by hearing. With a Protestant minister, Father Tanner. Father Tanner: I think I'm mostly teaching them to love one another. Prabhupada: you cannot be successful to teach people to love one another. That will never be successful. That has never been successful. But if you can teach people how to love God. with two Buddhist monks. Prabhupada hears them patiently, agrees with many of their precepts, avoids controversy, but still makes his point. Monk, we do not believe in a God. We believe that incomparable bliss and shanti, peace everlasting, is the most perfect. Prabhupada, at least you follow the leadership of Buddha. First of all, you have to follow a perfect leader. Then, whatever he says, that is perfect. You have given a definition of peace. Krishna is also giving a definition of peace. I am the proprietor of all the planets. I am the friend of everyone. I am the enjoyer of all fruitive activities. And when one knows me like that, he gets shanti. This is the peace formula given by Krishna. So the next 60 days would be the highest point, the perfection of my years by Srila Prabhupada's side. I watched with awe and supreme enjoyment as he shared his love for Krishna and for philosophy with a broad spectrum of people from British society. Prabhupada was the relaxed country gentleman, watching the seeds he'd sown blossom and spring into abundant fruit. Of course, wherever Prabhupada was perfect. But this haven of English soil in Hertfordshire seemed to be extra special to my spiritual master, and he was enjoying these soft, sunny days, the challenge of sharp minds, with a very special relish. So after Srila Prabhupada left in late September 1973, we were all very sad. And I walked through the gardens behind the manor and meditated on Srila Prabhupada's presence among us and his departure. I look across shadowed lawns as early October sun gilds gabled slate roofs and fluted chimneys and slides down the storybook outer walls of Bhaktivedanta Manor, lighting the mullioned windows to rooms upstairs where you so recently played with us. I remember the unusual beauty of your face and mouth, the flowing ease and subtle lines of cheeks and crinkles wrapping around and punctuating another perfect mood. Your dancing eyes, now somber and unmoving in thought, now wide and full of mischief. I recall the soft golden flesh of your shoulder and the surprising hard tissues beneath it. The flow of blue veins under forearms, behind knees, how they throbbed with a cool, even pulse as you lounged in the sun and roared with power when you danced all day. Watching you shave always had me in stitches. The wide, intent eyes and grimaces as you swiveled the mirror to see that your tilak was straight, or to check on a possible loose tooth. I remember how you dressed yourself slowly, keenly observing each cloth before choosing, then tied and tucked your dhoti with care. Nor can I forget quick pink fingers at your buttonholes, and how sometimes you leaned forward for me to close the one at the neck. Sun strikes the bright painted rainbow windows enclosing Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda, and I hear the ringing kartals and muted voices of devotees singing your praises. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, growing louder as I enter the temple room and fall flat glancing to my right. Wait, is he catching you for a moment? Knowing you're still here on your very cool throne. I approach Radha and Krishna and see them well-dressed, serene, and exhilarated with their new home and family. I am weak with gratitude to them for gifting me this raremost destiny. I'll catch my spiritual master down in India now, hang out with him for a while, maybe chase some more rhinos, show him what I can do. How could life be any better than this? I remember something I left out of my talk. First, I wanted to go back to the hilarity and fun that surrounded Srila Prabhupada all the time. We were laughing so much that one day I asked the Swami, I said, Swamiji, what is laughter? And the Swami said, laughter is the difference between what you expect will happen and what really happens. It's surprise, isn't it? Laughter is surprise. We laugh when we're surprised. And life in Krishna consciousness is a constant surprise, isn't it? I mean, we've got our eyes on the ball. We know that Krishna's moving at all events and all phenomena. And it gives us a very special view on the world. We're surprised all the time, which makes us joyful and full of laughter. That was just a side thing I forgot to mention. So and I think people ask me sometimes in these meetings, how can we make more, how do we know if we're making progress in Krishna consciousness? And I always say, it's how much you're laughing that is the thermometer on that. We'll get more into the mystic side here in my next reading. As a final offering, I'll read a passage which I wrote just 2 years back as part of the epilogue or the final summation in Volume 3, after looking back at all my years with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, how do I cope with a world without you physically present here? Sometimes I get so desperate to see you again. How do I maintain that special tingling glow I always had when I walked by your side or entered a room where you were sitting? Around you, the colors, shapes, sounds, other people, everything became more intense, heightened, and magnified. In your presence, I was thrilled with excitement, anticipation, a sense of comfort and safety, the certainty that whatever happens will be Krishna's arrangement and perfect in every way. But what about now? Yes, we have our sadhana, our daily practices, chanting the Maha Mantra, reading your books, visiting you in photos or your murti in the temples. But I've come to realize that the glue that holds me so tightly to your personal presence all these years has been what I can only describe as mystical experience. Prabhupada, you have opened the doors to perception and made it possible for us to see Krishna everywhere, at every moment of every day. You have ushered all of your devotees into the dimension of mystical experience. You said, devotees automatically have all mystic power. The bird that flies past my window, the phone call I get out of the blue, the whispers in my head as I write these words. to sense the plan and hand of Krishna in all events has made it easy to remember you. Not only remember, but associate in real time with you as you reach over to pat my shoulder for a word well placed or scold me for a thought ill-timed. As you shed your slippers and rustle across the rug to plop in that armchair over there and ask me, so what's the position, Shyamasundara? Or shoot me a note across the universe that all is well in Goloka, and why not join me here? In Srimad Bhagavatam you say, the devotees of the Lord can see everything clearly. Devotees do not have to endeavor for any yoga siddhi or perfection in mystic powers. They are competent to understand everything by the grace of the Lord who is sitting in everyone's heart. I need mystical experience in my life every day, Srila Prabhupada. I expect magic. This is what keeps me going, attached to you. I observe the flow, the coincidences, flashes of impossible beauty, the signs and indicators. I watch events and situations unfold around me, turn out just the way you said they would, and sense the magic everywhere, deepening more and more the personal, individual, mystical connection I have with you and Krishna. I don't often lecture in public, Srila Prabhupada, but when I do, devotees often ask me, how do you keep your spiritual strength? And my answer these days is, Prabhupada has given you the greatest gift. You have mystic powers. Now use them to see Krishna everywhere. Play with Krishna and expect magic. It's such a magic unfolding of Krishna's magic to be here today with all of you guys. It's just so natural and so flowing, and this is what keeps me going. And I try to pass on this feeling to others, because when it comes down to it, we're all individuals. We all have different ways of relating to Krishna, to Prabhupada, to the other devotees, to creating our own individual link to Krishna. So it's hard to put down formulas. I mean, we have our sadhanas, we have our, especially Prabhupada's books. I mean, if you look at it historically, Srila Prabhupada is the first major spiritual leader that's come along in the modern age, where everything he said is in books. It's all been written down. It's all here. Srila Prabhupada was born in the 19th century, just when they had just invented the automobile and electricity. Yet he timed his historical entrance into our lives just when they invented the tape recorder. He knew from his first days here that everything he said would be so important for the future. He insisted wherever we went that I bring a packet of carbon paper so that every letter I typed was in triplicate. One copy to be kept for the archives. We bought tape recorders. They were this big in the early days, and then they got smaller, and pretty soon you could carry one. And every lecture he gave, even on morning walks, we started recording everything. You know, by the grace of Krishna, the computer age and all this stuff has brought all of this down into a telephone this big. God, you can punch some numbers and hear everything Prabhupada ever said. Is that magic or not? So we're in every age is an age of magic, and our eyes are particularly opened and everything is known to us. As I said, we know everything now. I mean, it's almost become a cliche. The Hare Krishnas know everything. But we do. We know everything. Everything is in its place because Srila Prabhupada put it down for us. And he lived the personal example of everything he said. What I was talking about earlier as the perfect person, where do you find a perfect person? I remember one incident at Berry Place early on. It was very cold, and Prabhupada had just taken his morning walk around Russell Square, and he was coming back he came in the temple, and he had to go up some stairs to his room, and all the devotees were gathered in the foyer as he went up the stairs. He had on his overcoat, and he was wearing pink mittens. And he took the mittens off, and he put them in his pocket. And one fell out of his pocket and over the stairs down below on the floor where the devotees were standing. And Janaki picked it up, and she said, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, you have dropped your mitten." And Prabhupada looked down with this huge grin on his face, and he said, "Oh, I have made a mistake." He was faultless. There was no error in anything he did. I noticed one thing personally in the last 4 years of living alone, like in the forest. I've become very self-observant. And one of the things normally we thank Krishna, we think of Krishna, we thank him when something good happens to us. Oh, thank you, Krishna, that was great. But I've been noticing that from the moment I wake up in the morning, I make mistake after mistake, error after error. I put the wrong sock on the wrong foot. I spill something in the kitchen. I can't remember somebody's name. I make typos on my computer all day. So I've started now, I think, well, I should remember Krishna every time I make a mistake. Now I'm remembering Krishna all day long now. So everybody's got individual ways of approaching Krishna. The standard is there, like the books. I noticed that, every night, I'm so bad at this, but every night, about 20 minutes, I read from Srimad Bhagavatam, just a few verses with the purports. And I start at Canto 1 and go right up through, and it takes me a few years, and then I start over again. And I've come to realize that each night I read something, whatever I'm reading is applying to my daily life, to my life right now. That's really important to keep attached to Prabhupada's words, some of that. And chanting, of course. Everyone's got a different rhythm and a different way of chanting and working on that one. But I know that whenever I, after all these years, I should know, but whenever I have a negative thought of any kind or even slight depression or whatever, I grab my bead bag and walk somewhere, even if it's just in one room back and forth, and chant one round. And all that goes away. All that negativity or trouble in the mind, turbulence goes away. Everybody knows that. So those things are there, those basic tools. But try to get familiar with the idea of seeing Krishna everywhere in all events and phenomena. Once you start practicing that vision, Krishna turns to you. He lives in your heart. He's right there. You don't have to look out for him. And one step you take like that, each step you look and see Krishna everywhere in all events. That bird that flies by, whatever's going on. If you see Krishna in that, more and more you'll train yourself to see more and more, and Krishna will turn around and see you. This is the result of 55 years of meditating on all of this. Not much, but I don't pretend to be any sannyasi or great sage. I just love Prabhupada. And these 10 years that I spent writing these books, they're my best years of my life. I had to wait too until I was old to be able to do this. And I had to wait for the Veda base. once we had, now, does everyone know what is the Veda base? Yeah, everything Prabhupada ever said or did is in there, and it's categorized chronologically. So when I wrote these books, I could find out, oh yeah, let's see, on August 27th, he wrote this letter. Oh, I remember that now. Yeah. And then we have this wonderful thing called a search engine. Let's say on August 27th, he was in London. So I look up the weather on August 27th, 1972, the weather in London. It was raining. Yeah, I remember that day. Now we had to walk with the umbrellas in Regent's Park. Oh, and then that happened. Yeah, I remember. So all of these events are tied into the creation of these books. It was vastly researched. Another story. Prabhupada always said that anyone who writes about the Lord, he's not doing the writing. The Lord is doing the writing. And I can vouch for that. One incident that stands out, which shows you Krishna's magic very vividly, I was searching, I was writing still volume 1 or 2, and I was searching for a BBC interview that George Harrison gave on a particular date that was very important. That was the date he went public and told the whole nation about the Krishnas and how much he loved them. So it was important to find that interview to put in my book. I couldn't find it. I got a hold of BBC. They didn't have it anymore. All those records were deleted. I bought about 10 books of histories of that period of London and about the Beatles and all these books. And I stopped doing anything else for a week, and I was just stuck. I knew I couldn't go forward in this book until I found that interview. It was so important. So I was living near Los Angeles in those days. I was sleeping in my bed about 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. And my whole bed shook, and I opened my eyes, an earthquake. And I heard the books fall out of the shelves in the front room and all. But it's Los Angeles, so I just went back to sleep. It happens often. And I got up in the morning to walk out to the kitchen to make breakfast, and all these books were laying on the floor, so I started picking them up, putting them back in the and one of the books was laying on the ground, open to that interview. Anyway, so we can have a question period. I'm just so happy to be with all of you angels and chosen souls here at Coventry Temple tonight. And surely we've all been together in other lifetimes before. So these volumes 1 and 3 are available tonight, and this special commemorative issue just came out. This is the first time in history with a box, and it's deeply discounted. I'll sign any books anyone wants, and I hope you enjoy them as much as I have enjoyed producing them.
We have a plan for that now.
No, just wait. That's afterward. Right. Thank you all so very, very, very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
So we'll have some questions.
Yeah, I do have questions, but
Okay.
I'm a little bit greedy. I know greedy isn't out of context, but I want that flower. So I want to be the first one to buy the book.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Do you understand that? What's an old American saying? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, let's have some questions first.
Yeah.
I'll give you first.
Thank you. So I have
Greed is a good thing for Krishna.
Yes, so I have a question.
Okay, let's do that
I
first.
was like cooking prasadam this morning at my home, and all of a sudden I was thinking like, I was looking forward to meet you in person as well, because you have been blessed by Srila Prabhupada, and I have been reading the book as well, Prabhupada. And I have read about you in that book as well, that how much you have struggled, you have come here, and you met George Harrison and everything. I wanted to know, how did the concept of Mahaprasadam came into existence?
Mahaprasadam?
Yes.
Gosh. Those early days in San Francisco, you have to imagine, we didn't know anything, especially about temple worship or anything. The first few months that Prabhupada sat with us, it was just him in the room. There was a little altar with a picture of, we didn't even know what Krishna looked like. There were no pictures of Krishna anywhere yet in those days. Somebody finally found an old a poster or something from India that had Krishna's picture on it, with the one with him with a little calf like that and petting the calf. And we thought that was great. But Srila Prabhupada gave morning lectures and evening lectures, 2 lectures a day. And we just, like I was talking about earlier, Shruti. We just heard. We didn't even know what Krishna looked like. And he began describing, and right from the beginning, this fellow named Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was on the planet only 500 years ago. Oh, that's like almost contemporary with Shakespeare. That's not so long ago. So we began to get a picture of what he must have been like. But we had no images, what to speak of prasad or any of that. So we just kind of, Prabhupada hand-fed us little by little this knowledge. He never pushed anything. For the first couple of months that he spoke with us, our dogs would come in the temple and stay by the door. Everybody had, one day he said, dogs should stay outside. But he didn't say, get rid of your dog. In fact, I had a dog, and he sat in the back seat when I would drive Prabhupada around San Francisco. And Prabhupada would say, how is Ralph today? You know? Little by little. When I was carving, you probably know how then the first, I found that little image or Malati found it in a shop that was, and I brought it to Prabhupada, and this was Jagannath. So my first service was to carve Jagannath in full size.
Come on, big round of applause for that.
So my apartment was about, I'd say a mile from the temple. And I was taking my time carving these deities because I knew as long as they had not yet been installed, Prabhupada would stay with us. So I purposely went very slow. Now one day I heard a knock on my door, apartment door. I opened the door and there was the Swami standing there. He had walked from the temple. He came in with his cane. He said, I have come to check on the progress. Why are you going so slow? And so Lord Jagannath was standing there, and I was working, I think, on Subhadra at the time. And on top of Lord Jagannath's head, there was a pack of cigarettes, my cigarettes. And Prabhupada pointed his cane at them and said, what is that? I said, those are cigarettes, Swamiji. He went, blam, and he knocked them across the room, over into the corner. And he said to me, you should stop this. Now, it is too difficult to stop at once. You take one less every day. That was probably practical. Spoon feeding us little by little. So your question, what was Mahaprasad? We didn't really know what that was at all for a long time. Eventually, Prabhupada did teach once the deities were installed. Then he taught us a little bit about temple worship. Not much. We didn't know much. We didn't know arti or any of that. We just chanted Hare Krishna in front of the deities and waved a plate with a candle on it. That was it. And gradually the girls, Malati, Jamuna, some of the other girls, Prabhupada began instructing them. But as boys, we were out running around trying to do stuff, so we didn't know much about temple worship and all that. So your question is better asked of one of the girls that was one of the pioneer ladies who did that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You had the gold locks.
What?
The gold locks, your hair. You were very reluctant to cut your hair. Is that?
Oh, no, Prabhupada never said cut your hair. In fact, many of us still had long hair, and back for years, two, three. Only when we came to London, the first, we had a little apartment out in Herne Hill, which we couldn't, the guy kept saying, Earn Ill. We said, what's that? Herne Hill. Okay, we lived out there. And we thought, well, we were very shy, but we thought, let's go into Trafalgar Square and do Sankirtan, our first, after about a week having been here in England. And we went down there, we all had long hair, and we did our kartals and stuff, dressed in regular clothes, and the bobbies came over and kicked us out immediately. And everybody who saw us just went, ah. So then we decided we're going to have to stand out in order to be appreciated by the people of England. And we decided to cut our hair and shave our heads. We hated that. Gurudas went first. He was the boldest. And I'll never forget looking at him after his hair was gone, and there were all these bloody nicks all over his bald head, and laughing so hard I couldn't get off the floor. We were laughing at Gurudas so hard. I went next, Mukunda last. The girls shaved us. And from that moment on, we stood out. And we didn't know what dhotis were or anything, but we knew that if we wore them, we would stand out even more. So the girls went out and bought long sheets of yellow cloth. And we didn't know how to tie them or anything, but there was an Indian man living downstairs, and he showed us. Does that answer your question about locks?
Yes. How important was your meeting with George Harrison? How was it a turning point in the UK also?
Oh yes, absolutely. But unknown to most, that was our one of our major objectives in coming to England. Besides starting a center for Srila Prabhupada, because we knew he wanted one here. At that time, you can't imagine how famous those four men were. There's no historical comparison in history. These four men were by far the most famous people in the world. More famous than presidents, prime ministers, even the Pope. The Beatles. Everyone in the world knew who the Beatles were. And we knew that they had been interested in things from India. So we made that a primary objective, coming to England to meet the Beatles. We arrived here around the 1st of September, 1968, and by Christmas, we were friends with the Beatles. Yeah, it's Krishna's magic. Krishna's magic. So it was thought out. It was well thought out. And when George met me at an Apple Christmas party, the first thing he said to me was, "Where have you been? I've been waiting to meet you." Yeah. And when he sat down, and it was just like talking to my brother, somebody I'd known all my life. And he felt the same way. It was like, you know, with celebrities, normally you're very uptight with, you know, I'm so small and he's so big. But there was none of that between us. It was just like sitting there with my brother. So yes, that was the turning point as far as, I mean, all good things flowed from that. You know, we worked hard. I mean, we struggled and suffered in many more months before the big payoffs happened. But like I said earlier, within 1 year, the Prabhupada got met by a Rolls Royce at the airport.
So Prabhu, when this happened, you know, it was magic all the time, right? Every moment was a magic, you felt it?
Magic, not only magic, but full of laughter. We laughed so hard. We had little meetings in the morning before we all set out on our daily tasks. And all I can remember is just howling with laughter in those meetings. What are you going to do today, Gurudas? Well, I'm going to do this and that. And Mukunda, he and I were college mates and friends for years. He has a very subtle sense of humor. Plus, he's a musician, so he's able to mimic other people very well. And he would mimic. For us, Englishmen were very funny, quaint, you know. So he would mimic different English people that we had just met and just have us in stitches. Or he could also imitate like Indian people too. Yeah, that was funny too. Oh, yes. And he'd have us in stitches every day. So besides the magic, everything seeming to be magic, it was also fun. It was full of laughter and humor. We saw that in everything. Despite, people ask me, oh, you sacrificed so much, you suffered so much. I don't remember suffering at all. It was great. Total pleasure. Even if we only had 10 pence to our names, we were happy. We knew Krishna was guiding everything, and he still is. I mean, I still see that everywhere I look now. Life is fun.
Thank you.
Maharaj, is it true that Prabhupada never took any medication at all?
You know, everything about Srila Prabhupada has to be seen and taken according to time, place, and circumstance. There's almost no thing that you can say that Prabhupada never did this or never did that, or always did this and always did that. Every time, place, and circumstance is so important when you're studying Srila Prabhupada. I remember once in a while, I took some medicine. If somebody gave it to him who was an authorized doctor and said, this will really help you, he would try it. Or he often took some Ayurvedic medications. In fact, for his health, he would always go to India, where he knew one Ayurvedic doctor that he felt that man knew what he was doing. So, yeah. It's, you know, I read people, I don't know, people comment that Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada said that, and if you study his, if you study everything he ever said and did, you might find that he said one thing one day and the exact opposite the next. It's all time, place, and circumstance. Prabhupada always did things according to what was going on around him in the immediate now.
He doesn't have any regular doctor or GPs like that, no? No doctor visits and all?
No, he didn't have any regular doctor, no. Except that one gentleman in Calcutta. Prabhupada was in the medicine business. One time I came to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, well, he was just getting ready to leave for New York. And I said, well, Prabhupada, Swamiji, this may be the last time that I ever see you, that I see you. He said, why is that? And I said, well, in a couple of months' time, I have to go to jail. And he said, what? I said, yeah. I said, it was an old charge before I met you. He said, what for? And I said, well, I was selling some drugs. And he said, I'm a drug salesman also. What is the harm in that? And then he soothed me by saying, well, Krishna was born in jail. That's all. And actually, that was good for me to go to jail, 1 month only, because that's where I got the idea that when we get out of here, we must go to England and meet the Beatles while sitting in that.
So you took the idea to Srila Prabhupada?
Yeah.
Give a round of applause.
Here's to jail. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I feel it's very apt, chasing rhinos with the Swami. I feel that we're chasing rhinos with the Swami through yourself, Shyamasundara Prabhu, today. Who would have thought we would be in your presence? And it's such a joyous feeling to have you here and to be able to reach out through yourself to Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. My question today is, tell us how you first met Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Oh.
What were the circumstances? Where were you? How did you first encounter?
You need to get volume 1.
I will definitely buy that today.
In brief, it was through my friend Mukunda. His name was Michael Grant, and we went to school together, college together, and he was always my hero. Michael, he always knew what the latest things were in music and culture, and he was way ahead of me. So he was always like my hero. And one summer he disappeared. He went back to New York to play jazz. He was a jazz musician. And meanwhile, Melanie and I got a job on a fire lookout in the mountains, the wilderness in Oregon. They have these fire towers where people stay all summer and watch for forest fires. So we had been up there almost 3 months. It was almost, summer was ending. And one day this car drove up with New York license plates, and out comes Mukunda, or Michael. Michael, he says, yeah, he'd driven out from New York to tell us about the Swami he met. And I was very critical at first, follow somewhat what some old man tells you to do. Come on, Mukunda, here, have some whiskey. Oh, no, not anymore, I don't do that. What? Well, then, here, have a steak. We got some fresh steak. No, thank you very much. Like that, over a few days' time, he proved to me how happy he had become with this new knowledge. So that's what impressed me the most. I had already met the Swami through Mukunda. So when the Swami came a few months later to San Francisco, when we greeted him at the airport for the first time, I already knew this was the guy for me, my master.
Young man.
Yes.
So you're a pioneer, you're a lion in the pioneering days, carving a new culture in a new country. Did you ever have days or periods where you had such a busy service schedule that your personal staff were not put to the side?
Oh, yes, yes, many times. And there are many examples of that right here in Great Britain. For example, the opening of the installation of the deities at Perry Place. I was building the altar, getting ready for this installation. I'd been working on it for 3 days straight without sleep. Not one round chanting, just work, because Prabhupada said it had to be ready by December 14th morning, all ready for installation. Finally, on December 14th morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I drove the last nail into this thing, and I went upstairs and collapsed. So I missed the whole installation. I came to Prabhupada's room later that day, and by evening, I think I slept 12 hours. And he told me what all happened. And I was in such a rush that the canopy over the deities collapsed during the installation, apparently. But it was behind a curtain, so nobody in the audience saw it. And Prabhupada, it's described that he jumped up and held the canopy while they got the deities out like Lord Nrsingadev. So I missed all that. Many times that happened. I get so busy in service that I just didn't have time to chant and so on. And several times my godbrothers complained to Srila Prabhupada about, Shyamasundara, he's not chanting his rounds. And Prabhupada answered, Arjuna didn't chant his rounds on the battlefield either. One time, Ranchor, I was just down staying with him in Glastonbury last couple of days, and he reminded me of one of those incidents. He says, I remember that time. He says, one time he said, somebody came to Prabhupada and complained about Shyamasundara. He's not doing this, he's not doing that. And Prabhupada looked at them and said, Shyamasundara can do anything, damn thing he pleases. I thought that, oh, Prabhupada, thank you for that.
Where's the mic? On YouTube, you can't hear without mic.
There's,
Jai, Haribol. Haribol. Something about Srila Prabhupada, you made a statement that you never saw him sleep. Maybe you could enlighten others about his magic.
Well, I was his personal secretary for 3 years, 24 hours. And you'd think I would have seen him sleep. I never saw him sleep. One time, it's described, I think, in volume 2, we were on a train, a first-class compartment from Bombay to Madras, Chennai, overnight. And just Prabhupada and I in the compartment. And he said, you sleep up top, I will sleep below. So the hours passed and it got dark. And he said, you can go up and sleep now. So I went up on top and I pulled my chowd over my head. And I think I went to sleep for a while. And later I woke up, it was dark in the room, and I looked down there. There was some light coming in through the windows of the train, and I could see Srila Prabhupada with his chowda up over his head, and I looked over the end, last I get to see him asleep. And just as I thought that, he pulled his head out, one eye out from under the chowda, looked up at me and said, didn't say anything, but it was like, in my mind, he said, thought you'd catch me sleeping, huh? But Prabhupada's energy was so transcendental that we can't compare it to our own. I mean, he often did things that just contradict all rules of physics. You know, he was endlessly energetic when he had to be. Other times, I mean, he would almost like, one time, another incident of this, at Berry Place, he had his room there, and his servant's room, his secretary's room, we were off to the side, bunk beds, 2 of them. And about, I guess, maybe 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I heard this very faintly, but it woke me up, Shyamasundara. I woke up and hit my head on the bunk above me, and I reeled out to Prabhupada's door, and I opened it, and he collapsed into my arms. Just, and I picked him up, and it was weighed like a feather pillow. There was no weight. Oh my God, Prabhupada's had something sick. I went over to his bed and I laid him down. He was kind of shivering. I covered him with all these blankets. I went over and turned the heater up. And after some time, his eyes were closed. After some time, he opened his eyes and said, "No hospital," and closed them again. So I sat there and chanted for hours while Prabhupada slept. And then, he said, "No hospital. Make a paste, a black pepper paste." He had told us about this paste before, so I knew what it was. It's a paste made of black pepper, some kind of maybe butter or something, ghee, I don't know. So I ran upstairs and woke up Malati and said, "Make some of that black paste pepper for Prabhupada's head." And later she came in and I put it on his head. And time went by, and Prabhupada was all covered up, just a lump on the bed. And then somebody blew the conch downstairs in the temple. It was more Mangalarti. Prabhupada woke up and he said, "So it's time for our morning walk?" As if nothing happened. It was one of his, these kind of plays went on all the time. Prabhupada would display miraculous stuff to the point where it became commonplace. I didn't see it until I wrote these books. Okay.
One more. What was Srila Prabhupada's favorite dish?
That's another one of these things that you know, it's time, place, and circumstance. You can't make these kind of catch-all pronouncements about Prabhupada. You know, he relished prasadam wherever he was in a certain way. Even one time we were in Kampala airport in Uganda, and those were the days of Idi Amin. And we were flying from Nairobi up to UK, but we had or maybe over to India, but we had to transit through Kampala airport. And that was the height of that terrorism. So we had to spend like hours at night in this abandoned airport. There were no people there, no facilities, no food. So, and we had hours to wait because they didn't have gasoline for the planes, whatever the jet fuel. So we were sitting there late into the night, and I could tell probably we were getting hungry, very hungry. So I went all over the airport, everywhere, you know. I finally found a loaf of white bread and a bottle of limca. I brought him to Prabhupada, and he ate it with such great relish.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Guru Maharaj.
Mic is gone.
Turn it on.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Radio mic.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. As you explained about your chanting, of course, that time in the beginning of ISKCON, you have to face so many challenges. You have to do so much hard work. That's why you missed your chanting. And Prabhupada answered, Arjuna was not chanting in the battlefield. So my question is, in these days, we got so many facilities, so many devotees at the temple. Is there any chance if a devotee can make an excuse, oh, I'm doing so much service, that's why I'm not doing chanting, I'm missing out chanting, this okay? So how important is chanting, 16 round chant every day, without really even devotee doing so much seva even? So that's my question.
Can you, what did he say?
What he's saying is, even these days, even if people have lots to do, or the devotees have a lot to do, is it important that they finish their 16 rounds? That's what he's saying. Otherwise, they'll take this example as, it's okay, we can miss them out and all that. But your days were pioneering days and lots of challenges.
Time, place, and circumstance. Yes. Best thing is to go on database, put in that your question into the search engine, and you'll see all the various replies Prabhupada gave to that question, and see which reply fits you best. Everybody's different. Every situation is different. To lay these formulas out like hard and fast rules, Hey,
I have extreme powers.
You do have extreme power. There it is. Hey.
Not power, extreme power.
Extreme power. Yes, you do. Here's the best. Here's the smartest man in this room.
He said have fun on his teaching.
Yeah.
You're Krishna now. Very good. Yes.
So I can go on his powers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have time yet for more questions, or should we? Hey.
I'll give you stage
Shut
in
up.
20 years' time. You go to your daddy. Come on, have fun. Anybody else with a Prabhu?
Yes. This lady, she had a mic.
Hare Krishna. My Dhanvats, my obeisances to you. And my question is, how supportive was Prabhupada to modernize the movement? Like in Kirtans, today we are using many of the modern instruments. The Kirtan is more westernized.
Yeah.
Though that time also there was George Harrison who made his own album in which he was preaching. So was it like Prabhupada was permitting that, or?
Yes, well, Prabhupada, his own spiritual master always taught that whatever is there, use it for Krishna's service. And this is all we've been talking about, to see Krishna in everything. If there's new technology comes in, we utilize that for Krishna. We say that this material world is real. It's just it's imaginary and real at the same time. So we use whatever's offered to us to serve Krishna with it. I mean, a case in point, have any of you ever seen Bhakti Siddhanta's Bhajan Kutir in near Vrindavan? Here's this little room with a bed, and right beside where the head of the bed is a flush toilet. He put that in the 1930s. Flush toilets were a new thing, right beside his bed. He used the modern, whatever convenience is there to help you serve Krishna. Use it. Prabhupada took that with him, that same information that his spiritual master taught him, and we've all been using it. We use now our computers and stuff to spread Krishna consciousness. All very good. It's all good. Use whatever Krishna has manifested to serve him with. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Hare Krishna, Shyamasundara Prabhu, Dandar Pranam. My respectful obeisances to you. With the books that's coming in, that's so interesting, and I've seen your lecture as well. And I'm just browsing through, and there is one audiobook for your first version. So I'm just wondering when the other versions, audiobooks will be coming then.
Well, the first, for volume 1, I put into an audiobook, yeah, and it's available. It's 23 hours. It must be really boring to hear me for 23 hours. It took about a month to make it. I don't know if I'll ever do volumes 2 and 3, if I ever get the time, and we'll see.
Well, it will be very encouraging because there are devotees who have struggled with reading, and then it's really easy to actually associate with the audiobooks.
Well, the audiobook's been out there for like 2 months and nobody's buying it.
He's going to be the first customer, okay?
So, I'm a practical guy. I still got to pay my rent and my food. And if I spend a month to make something that has no profit, why bother?
Maybe it's not advertised. I mean, it really makes sense to advertise the book, audiobooks.
Yeah, okay. It's on chasingrhinos.com if you want to order it.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay. I'm getting a little tired.
Okay, that's good.
Whatever.
Okay.
So how will we do the book table?
Yeah.
I will sit there, or?
I'll just have a little. Okay. Thank you.
So they pay first.
What we'll do is, if you don't mind, because you have a little break, we'll do Aarti.
Oh, okay.
So that'll give you a little period to do that. After Aarti, what we're going to do is, we're going to take you into that room there. There's a little room there. So then people can queue up.
Oh.
And then,
where's Shyam?
Shyam.
Oh, you got the phone.
He's
okay,
over there.
They'll buy the book and then come over here and I'll sign it. Is that right?
You sign them, and then this is Prabhupada's
flower.
You get the blessing. And then Shyam also has a credit card. If you have a credit card, you can give it to him. So the prices are, if you buy one book, it's £20, but if you buy a set, it's £50. So that's 3 books there. And you'll be amazed what sort of information is there. This was like a brief introduction. I remember this documentary you were talking about. They must have found it again, because George Harrison was talking. And he said, the devotees would ring me saying, Swamiji is in town. He would like to meet you. He says, I would think to myself, my head is all messed up. How am I going to meet Swamiji? He said, but because I liked the devotees, he said I would go and meet Swamiji, and when I would come back, my head was happy. I don't know how he did it. So when I heard that statement, that stayed with me. Even George Harrison said I was all messed up, but when I took darshan Srila Prabhupada, I was feeling all great like that. So there are so many other stories in there. So now we'll do Aarti, if you can take this. Yeah. Yeah, some of you might not want to buy a book, want to give donation and all that. That'll be a pretty good service. But, you know, why don't you buy the book? I'll encourage that. And if you just want to later on get the blessing of the flower, you can also queue up for that later on. Is that okay? But for now, we'll do the Aarti. Jai Ho. वो विभू करने वाला ना हाँ वो गाएगा Where's the mic from here? वो पीछे रख Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Shiva Jayo, Jayo, Gora Chande, Arati Kosho. Shiva Jayo, Jayo, Gora Chande, Arati Kosho.
Saraswati Deve Gauravani Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jai Vaishnav Thakur. Jai Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jai Vaishnav Thakur. Jayo Jayo Prabhudev, Gurudev, Gurudev, Jayo Jayo Gurudev. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य श्री श्रीमद अभय चरण अरविंद भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। गुरु परंपरा की जय। सर्व गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय। नवाचार्य श्री हरदास ठाकुर की जय। श्री श्री सच्चिदानंद निताय चाँद की जय। जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की जय। श्री श्री राधा माधव राधा रमन भगवान की जय। सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान की जय। ISKCON Coventry की जय। His Grace श्यामसुंदर प्रभु की जय हो। जगत गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। गौर ब्रह्मानंदी। All glories to the divinities, all glories to the divinities, all glories to the divinities, all glories, all glories, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Guru Maharaj की जय। हरि ओम। हरे कृष्ण।
Jai
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Did you enjoy that? Can we cut the ribbon? Thank you very much. So we'll be serving prasadam very soon. Just a couple of announcements. This temple is becoming very active and very busy. This today especially was very busy for us. Started off, those who don't know, our extension plans have been approved. About 2 weeks ago they were approved. So today we had the first meeting with the experts. You know, the builder, one builder, the architect, and structural analysis. The structural engineer was there also, yes. And also our ISKCON congregation member, Avi did, yeah? Avi, but we call him Avi. And he's helping us a lot also, because he's a quantity surveyor. So the right group of people are coming together, and the discussion is becoming more serious and more focused. So that's good news for this temple. Okay, a round of applause for us, please. And immediately following that meeting, we had a CPR course here. And it was well attended and well received. Everybody who took part was very happy.